Problem 3, you are proving triangles similar. So that you're actually going to write a proof here. So you're given this information right here under the given, and you want to prove this. So the best thing to do is the easiest way to prove, actually write a proof, is a proof is an explanation. Basically, it's directions to somebody else of how you can prove that this is similar, right? So they're directions step by step of how you do it. The best way to do that is a two-column proof where you have statements. So you make statements and then you give reasons for those statements, right? So you got to justify your reasons. Okay, so you give directions and then you got to justify your reasons. So you always start with what's given. Excuse me. So you want to start by what's given right here. All these sides are congruent. So which leads you to think, well, how am I going to prove triangles congruent? Well, the only ways I have is angle, angle similarity. I have side, side, side similarity, and I have side, angle, side. So because they give me two sides here are congruent, these two sides and these two sides, that would probably lead me to getting rid of this one, right? Because they have given me sides. And the reason I can say this, these two corresponding angles are congruent, is given to me, right? It's in the given. Okay, so I'm done with those two pieces of information. Now I want to use those to say, okay, well, let's go ahead and mark that on our diagram, right? So that's one mark for that, and GH, those two sides, okay? Actually, and then JK, this one, is congruent to this one. So that means, so actually I am going to use this one, because if you remember, if you have an isosceles triangle, two sides are congruent. That means their opposite angles are also congruent. Okay, mark that like that. So I'm actually going to use this one. So because of that, I can say that these two triangles are isosceles. FGH is isosceles. And triangle JKL. Don't you like my triangle? Isn't it nice and pretty? And the word isosceles. It's mostly because I can't spell, so I just kind of scribble. And that is by definition. So those are isosceles triangle by definition, right? Two angles or two sides are congruent on a triangle. So that's by definition of isosceles triangle. Okay. So those are my reasons and my justifications, right? My statements and my reasons. Okay, now I keep on going. Now because I have isosceles triangle, opposite angles are congruent. So that means angle F is congruent to angle H, and angle J is congruent to angle L, right? And I can say that because when I have isosceles triangle, the opposite sides, opposite angles are congruent. Opposite angles are congruent on isosceles triangle, right? So I can say that, so that's my reason. So you always have to make a statement and a reason. Okay, so let's keep on going. So, but we also are given, so I'm kind of stuck, right? So I know these two are corresponding, right? And I know that these two are corresponding, okay? So how can I prove that these two, these green ones are congruent, and how can I prove that these two blue ones are congruent? These two are congruent to themselves, and these two are congruent to themselves. But how can I prove that they're all kind of congruent? Well, that's where I look right here. I'm given angle F is congruent to angle J. So that is given to me. So if I'm given that, so if angle F, if these two are congruent, right, that means that if J is congruent to F and J is congruent to L, then isn't L congruent to F? And if those both are congruent to F and H is congruent to F, then they're all the same measure. And so basically that's what I say at the end here. Angle H, therefore, is congruent to angle J, and angle H is congruent to angle A, or angle L. And I can say that because it's called the transfer property, right? If A is equal to B and B is equal to C, then isn't A equal to C? That's called the transitive property. Transitive property of congruence. Okay, and therefore, so now I have two angles, right? I have two angles are congruent. So angle, angle, similarity, right? HJ, if I look back. So H and J, and F and L. So I have my two angles. So triangle FGH is similar to triangle JKL, and that's what I was trying to prove by angle-angle similarity. So therefore, I'm all done. Okay, so those are kind of tough. So try it with this, and you're going to be using, I'll give you a hint, you're going to be using this one as well. So maybe you have to redraw these. Here's your two triangles that you're trying to prove. So maybe redraw them. If you have parallel lines, what does that mean about these angles right here? What does that prove about these angles? And then what might you know about these two angles because they share B? Okay, so there's your hint. All right.